record? Are we recording? Yes. All right. Cool. So
Esteli, where are you?
I'm actually,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, it's okay. Yeah, I live in Appleton, Wisconsin now.
Oh, that's right. You told me
Yeah,
that. My
yeah.
mom went to college there.
Oh, that's so cool. At Lawrence?
I guess yeah, I guess so. We played a concert there like quite a few years ago, and I think I mentioned it, and she goes, "Oh, I went to school there."
Oh, wow. That's so
Yeah, wow.
cool. Yeah, the conservatory is awesome. I just started teaching there this past year.
Is that what is that called? That the
It's
conservatory?
Lawrence. Yeah,
Oh, it
Lawrence
is.
Conservatory. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and is there still another college there, a general college, or there must be?
It's a dual like liberal arts
Yeah.
and
That's
conservatory.
Greg.
Hey
Craig,
there.
hey, good to see
Hello.
you.
It's great to see you too.
Okay, cool. So this is everybody, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Everybody that's important anyway,
Well, should I
right?
for
leave?
right now, yeah. Well,
Yes.
we need Bill for that, but I'll have to do it. Hey
Uh,
guys, Craig, good to
You-
see you.
It's so great to see
Yes.
you, John. My gosh. Yeah,
Pretty
nice
ex
to meet
pretty
okay.
exciting. We're
Yeah,
right up. Yeah. Well, we'll let
it's so
Tony take over
exciting.
here. Yeah.
Let's see
No,
what recording here. Yeah. Okay.
Tony,
So
are you using the audio for this recording, or are you also planning to? Is there some context in which people are actually going to see us? Just so I know.
I was thinking I'll definitely be using for the audio, but I was thinking I just did just a minute ago, or about 30 minutes ago, interview with another artist, and I was thinking, wow, it'd be really great to actually see the person as kind of a additional thing. So, I mean, if everybody's fine with also using the video, I'd love to do that. Be another mode to promote your work. So,
Sure.
I'm okay with that, you guys. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
hmm Just
Yeah.
good to know, so we're not being
right.
our only audio selves.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so let's see. I've got some questions here. We only got like 30 minutes. I know everybody's super busy, so let me just kind of go down it. Craig, if I could start with you, please. I guess the general thing first. How did the singing guitar project, CD project, the recording project come about, and why on earth music for mixed chorus and guitar ensembles?
Yes, absolutely. Well, this began, I think, about 6 years ago. There was a joint commission, Conspirare and Texas Performing Arts and Austin Classical Guitar. Um, I had had it in my little brain for a while of wanting to do something, play with multiple choirs of instruments and voices. You know, we always have choral fun with all the things that came from St. Mark's in Venice and all the polychoral things, but you know that just gives our imaginations in the modern times just some fresh stuff for play and consideration. And so I pitched this idea first with Kathy Panoff, and I said, you know, I'd love to think about if whatever composer we were thinking of, and then we quickly kind of found our way to Nico as who we really wanted to work with. But would he be open to playing with this idea of kind of uh, three guitar choirs, if you will, and voices? I just love that interplay, and uh, and then also the idea of that those choirs being one threaded ensemble too. It was actually quite a large vision, which included a lot more than just 12 guitars initially. But we kind of had a little reality time and thought of the costs and the vision, and so it became then three guitar quartets, which I was delighted to pursue with Nico then, and Matt Hensley was very very involved in that as well. Wonderful Matt, and so we went forward with this, and I think the idea of kind of these four choirs didn't necessarily take in the long run, but Nico kind of kept that in mind, and it became what it was supposed to become. But that's how this all started. Obviously, guitar and voice are such a natural fit, especially with a solo voice. We think of that, and I had done some of the repertoire that is available for choir and ensemble and guitars, but there's always that challenge of balancing the ensembles too, acoustically in terms of the kind of amount of sound that gets produced literally. And so I was really interested, and I'm so happy this finally made it to a recording project because that was my ultimate goal. Because I think this piece with Nico is really will live so happily as a recording, and it needs to be something that envelops and surrounds. And then now we've got Kyle's new wonderful piece as well, Reena Esmail's piece, which was newly conceived for this. So that's kind of how all this got started.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if you could, Craig, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about each of the pieces on the singing guitar, Conspirare's new CD. You want to just start from the top with the, first of all, am I pronouncing Reena Esmail's name
Reena
correct?
Esmail, yeah. And so this is a piece that was originally called When the Violin. It's set to a Hafiz text in one of those wonderful renderings of Daniel Ladinsky. Um, and we loved this piece. When I was talking with Reena, it seemed she wondered if maybe this could be reconceived. Bill Cannongeiser, of course, of LA Guitar Quartet, the beautiful players there, and Bill really felt like some of these violin slash cello lines, because it was also there's a version for cello, was that he just felt they were lay very naturally in the guitar, and he was very excited about it. And so we shared this back and forth with Reena. Then they got together in Los Angeles, and now we have this beautiful piece which opens the CD, and it's an extraordinarily gorgeous text. You know, when the guitar can forgive the past, it starts singing. Feels like a lovely entry to make into the world right now. So much we could think about forgiveness right now. Nico's piece, of course, is the sort of a large centerpiece work on this recording, multi-movement work. These are all set to texts, basically kind of journal writings, prose texts of 19th century, early 20th century pioneer women. And I think what Nico has done is really extraordinary, and I could say a lot about this work, but it's so special, and it's a piece that really bears repeated listenings, and the winner will experience a great yield in terms of the depth of the experience the more you listen. I have found this, I mean, I'm an advocate for the piece, and I had, of course, been involved in the editing process too, and I've been with the piece a long, long time, but I have found myself just growing in love with it. It kind of deepens and broadens as I go. I'll say a little bit about the beautiful movement that he wrote for solo soprano, which Esteli will tell you some more about too, but it's kind of a real exquisite heart center for me of this work. And there are times with the rhythmic displacement that he's done with the guitars in a very simple texture that the listener will feel not absolutely clear formally where they are in the work, and it's really the point also, but in the middle of this beautiful, delicate spaciousness comes this really soaring, very challenging vocal part, but one that's, even though it's got huge intervallic leaps, is also very linear melody, just heartbreakingly beautiful. That sets the sort of centerpiece text of this, How Little You Are, and Esteli can share a little bit more about that, but some great writing. He uses the guitars in all kinds of different ways, and we had a ball kind of exploring it over the past few years together. In the midst of this, yep.
Yeah, to kind of dive in deeper a little bit, you kind of touched on it, but I'd like to amplify that point where you're talking about the text of How Little You Are, or text, plural. Is that from one person's pioneer woman's writings, or is that a collection of several? What's the story on the text of that?
Yeah, it's a collection, and Nico actually curated it with a colleague of his. So he collected these texts and found them. They're kind of from our region of the country, basically Texas, Oklahoma-ish, southwestern. And but they worked hard to bring these poems. It's really two primary and a third, kind of, so three women, but essentially two are the biggest body of texts. And
about what time were those written?
Early 20th century, late 19th is the spirit of these and the placement of these texts, yeah.
And these are these memoirs of people from earlier times, or is that a contemporary writing?
You know, from my understanding, they were, all of them were active writers, but these appeared in collections of theirs in different forms. I mean, some of them were sort of almost like well-written journals. Others were things that were written as prose pieces. So it's a sort of variety of offerings in this. He did some really great work to find these, and they're sort of beautiful oddities, I would say.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see. There were a couple of movements about it I kind of flagged. I was hoping you might be able to dig into a little bit deeper. One of them was "Do You Remember?" Could you talk a little bit about that piece and what's the text of that one about? What's the story?
Yeah, that's kind of a heartbreaking little text about an infant death. These are prairie pioneer women who are really left to kind of run the show while their sort of husbands are out conquering or seeking to conquer or just away. And so these are women who are left to, run the household, do all the work, raise the family, deal with the elements, deal with, just kind of single parent households, to be sure, in a very vast and kind of large open wilderness, frankly. And this particular movement is just references the death of a son. She references her husband, Clyde, who's a carpenter, making a little coffin for him. And the opening text is, "Do you remember I wrote you of a little boy dying? That was my own little Jamie, our first little son." He's composed this, he tributes, he says it as a dedication to David Lang, sort of in thanks. Sort of David Lang in the tradition of kind of Arvo Pärt with sort of spaciousness in this. It's a repeating line that first the altos sing over and over and then comes in with other voices. Just the "Do you remember, do you remember?" It's quite mesmerizing, quite haunting, and very effective. We would always begin rehearsing that one because it was also the most sort of vertically aligned piece of the bunch. So from a practical standpoint, it was a good entry point.
And another one was a long drawn wail. Could you talk specifically? What's the text of that one about?
Yeah. I can read it to you here. I was going to just find you in the part 3. I can never describe to you the weird beauty of a moonlit night among the pines, when the snow is sparkling and gleaming, the deep silence unbroken by the snapping of a twig. We were about to go back to bed when we heard faintly a long-drawn wail, as if all the suffering and sorrow on earth were bound up in that one sound. We can't tell where it came from. It goes on a bit longer, but yeah, it's this beautiful atmospheric setting about the sounds of the night in that open spaciousness. And Nico has the tenors in that case doing this sort of achy, quiet howl that is very evocative of this long-drawn wail that we feel in the text. It's all sort of both literal and beautifully symbolic at the same time. It holds a lot in the evocation of this atmosphere of longing, of loneliness, of far apartness.
Yeah.
Their nearest neighbor so far away, and they were just there in the deep sounds of wilderness. And everything seems like in those moments kind of a reflection of one's own soul. You're just singing about nature, reflecting on the aspects of nature which are complete reflections on sort of our existential awareness and yearning and longing, and it's extraordinary.
And then there's, I guess, John, if you could jump in here, there's an interlude called Springtime. Maybe if both of you could talk a little bit about that one, and maybe Craig, if you could talk about it compositionally, and John as a player, since you're in the LA Guitar Quartet featured on this recording.
John, you go for it.
Yeah, that was the one that we really had to pay attention on. That one is a tricky little thing. It moves along quickly. People are playing in. Oh wow, I have to think back now. I wasn't prepared for this, but it's mostly in these short 3/8, 2/8 kinds of bursts. I don't know, Craig, help me with the. I could talk about the playing of it, but do you have any context to put that in?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm with you there, though. I mean, it's been a few months, isn't it? And
Yeah.
but it's as great. It's as very springy, freshy. I mean, so much of this piece is spacious and reflective, and this just speaks of spring. It was nature, springtime smiled. The beautiful prairie flowers put up their heads beneath leaves of green. Jessamine covered the lattice. The atmosphere covered me of the future resurrection of the body after death. All was sublime. Yeah, it's beautiful, evocative, and uh, the singers sing a lot of syllables, no, 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 just kind of being a part of the texture. Guitars are very, very busy. There's this fast. You can speak a little bit about some of that, John, but I know the 16ths that are running very, very quickly uphill and downhill and have to be done in tandem. The whole thing always it felt wonderfully challenging to try and anchor it, didn't it?
Yeah, it has a kind of buzziness to it almost. It's sort of like small busyness that you would get that I guess sort of evokes the awakening of the earth in the springtime with
Yes, a lot of overtone play, which was really fun. He was always going for, yep.
yeah, it's
Springtime. Okay.
incredibly evocative. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
goes by quick and there's some very tricky things in it. I guess it I don't know, Craig, does it is it the one that's the most overtly drawing on minimalism, I guess, which of course that's part of Nico's
Um,
background is his, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think I was thinking the second movement really is in that catalog for sure.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, but this has a lot of this sort of counters that in a beautiful way. So I mean, it kind of holds as a container for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another movement that I'd flagged, the Night Herders. Who are the Night Herders, and what's that text about?
Yes, the Night Herders is in part five. They are those herding the animals in the evening, part of their ritual, part of the evening, but who used to sing, or who would sing. We at least were told. I wasn't amongst them, but we get this beautiful image. He uses the old song, which we know, kind of being passed. Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie. Over and over he sang it. So we hear the herders singing, and then what he does to kind of evoke the sense of the many night herders, probably across miles of horizon, doing this same herding practice, is that he has the singers sing it sort of at random times. So after we hear it once or twice, then all of a sudden they come in sort of canonically, randomly, over and over, singing just layers into the evening horizon. It's a beautiful movement, um, and in capturing sort of the feeling of that nighttime work on the prairie and that nighttime evocation.
Okay. And Esteli Gomez, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's Esteli.
Esteli. Okay.
Yeah.
Put that accent. There we go. Um,
Thank you.
so you're the featured soloist in this. Have you ever worked with an ensemble like this before? I mean, I can't think of it. 12 guitars and chorus and featured soloist. So is there anything
Yeah.
there you could draw upon when you were doing this premiere and this recording?
Well, I mean, the makeup of a guitar quartet is so similar to the kind of vocal chamber music that we do, as just gigging freelance musicians. We don't have maybe the same exact, experience as a string quartet or as, constantly touring together. I'm a part of a group called Roomful of Teeth that is a double quartet, so an octet of musicians touring around together, and that certainly it felt similar in some ways. And also, I have a duo with a guitarist named Colin Davin.
Oh,
So yeah, so I've done a number of commissions, and we've had recital programs for about 6 or 7 years that we've done together.
oh, wow.
Um,
So you're
yeah,
pro having to do with guitar players.
well, I mean, deal with guitar players. I grew up, my dad's a
Mhm.
guitar player. I grew up around the sounds, and it's a big part of Mexican culture. It's a part of my musical background, not as a player, but just as somebody loving music and considering it part of my, yeah, part of my childhood, part of community building. So this was a dream piece to have that many guitars and also to have my Conspirare family. I've been performing with Conspirare for um, about 10 years almost.
Well,
So
so you're the soloist, but you also sang as part of Conspirare in the other pieces too, correct?
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Awesome.
I have little bits of solos, and I have there's sort of the main one in How Little You Are, and then there are we have duos and quartets and little bits in Reena Esmail's piece as well. Yeah.
I will just jump in there, just to say, excuse me, that this is a very special solo, and
Oh.
very few people can sing it, and perhaps should sing or would want to. Just it's difficult. It's kind of a tightrope act, and I tell you, this is a really shining, gorgeous track, and Esteli sang it so beautifully. It's just, it is like a winner, like take it to the end of your days kind of track. So I can't wait for people to hear
Thank you.
it.
Let's see. We'll see.
Really special.
We could move on since we're getting close on time. The Kile Smith piece, the Dawn's Early Light. Craig, could you talk to us about that piece? What's the text about? What's the source material of that, etc.?
Yeah. Well, we had we knew we were going to record Nico's piece, and then but it was only 44-ish, 45-ish minutes, and doesn't quite make a full CD, and we still are burning those frisbees, and and we still want to, and so I we knew something was incomplete both in the for the CD and the project itself for the concert. So I asked Kyle if he would consider writing, because I really love Kyle's writing, but I felt like I wanted to see would there be a way to balance some other woman or women's voices in this project. So we had pioneer women who represent a certain thread of what was happening, but and I said particularly I'd be interested if you could, if we could explore together maybe a Native American text. I really, once I planted that seed, Kyle was really open to it, and I credit him entirely. We were both looking and digging, but he came back one day just very enthusiastic and excited about this book that he had read. It was called Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims by Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins. And her autobiography is really the first published book by a Native American woman, and this is around 1844 in what we now know as Nevada. Um, but she became a major advocate for her people, for a very oppressed people. So I was so happy to include this text. There are excerpts that he curated the text around for this. And this is just for single quartet now. And so Los Angeles Guitar Quartet plays on this very beautifully. Very different style of piece, in many ways more extroverted. Um, it's a greatly varied piece within the structure of this, but it's a fantastic piece. And within this too, he does a very interesting movement. He does sort of a recomposition, a new composition, setting the text of the Star Spangled Banner, which is a part of one of the stories that's told in Sarah's writings, which I will leave for people to listen and get to know. But the story itself references how some of the tribes people had heard it, but very, very differently than the white man sang it. So Kyle has just created a very beautiful rendering, which we had an extraordinarily meaningful time singing, and that's kind of the gist of where we got started with this piece.
Mm-hmm. Uh, let's see. We could talk. I flagged some movements on this, and of course, there's the first movement, Sarah Winnemucca.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a little bit about the text of that? I know for a first-time listener, they're going to be listening for the text, but may not get it on their first hearing.
Mm-hmm. We do, of course, all of our texts are also printed in the liner notes if someone does purchase a CD, or we have them available on our website too. So someone can always find these texts too, which we would love for people to do. But yeah, so he speaks in his first one, I, Sarah Winnemucca. It's just a sort of declamatory opening statement. I'm a shell flower, such as I wear on my dress. This was just a line of the text as an introduction and something that Kyle was drawn to. Beautiful, simple initial touch. And then the second movement, My Grandfather Jumped Up, really begins her storytelling about her grandfather. And then each of the movements kind of continues on, I will say, the story that Kyle kind of shaped based on her writings, because these are just excerpts, of course. The next movement, While They Were Fishing. Each of them, I think, takes advantage of different guitaristic sort of elements, guitar aspects technically, which are very fun to have in this recording because you can hear them so up close, of course. And so there's a lot of variety in the guitar writing. The vocal writing in some of these opening movements is more homophonic, more kind of all of us singing the same text at the same time. But a lot of variety in this work.
John Dearman, is this the first time the LA Guitar Quartet has recorded with the chorus or choir? Have you done other similar vocal?
It's the first time that it is the first time that we've recorded with the choir. We've done a couple one-offs where we did part of a program with the choral group, and that feature, God, that was a long time ago. I know that we've performed a couple times. We've done an arrangement of Morton Lauriston's De Retone from Lux Eterna. That was a very well-known work for him. And so anyway, and Morton Lauriston teaches at USC, where both Bill and Scott teach. So they got his permission to adapt that. So we did and we recorded that on our own, just as a quartet arrangement. But we have also done it. I think some choral director who ran a concert series had heard the recording, and he said, "Oh my God, you guys do that?" He goes, "We want to have you do a concert, but could our choral group come on stage and just do De Retone with you?" So we had to rearrange it, and I think we did it one other time too, but we haven't recorded that. Mm-hmm. And no, we haven't worked with any other choral group. We worked with singers, of course. In fact, we did a tour with do you remember the tour we did with Luciana Souza a few years ago, the Brazilian singer? And we ended up recording with her. And
no, I didn't get to see that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Oh, while I'm thinking of it, Craig, you probably know about this piece already, but I just discovered it. An Estonian composer, Sven Grunberg, a piece for mixed chorus and 7-string guitar. The translation is Will I Find You? He's an Estonian composer. He was like a progressive rock guy, and now he leads some Buddhist temple, but he wrote this gorgeous piece. I just aired it on the radio show, and it's one of those phenomenal pieces. I'm getting slammed with inquiries about what is that wood, but anyway, you just might want, if you don't know about it already, but yeah, it says Steve Bloomberg, Will I Find You?
Is it electric guitar?
No, for 7-string guitar and mixed chorus. It's very much Arvo Pärdisch. It's gorgeous, gorgeous.
Arvo Pärt has a wide-ranging influence, doesn't he?
Yeah, I bought a CD of Estonian chamber music just because I like the cover art, and it ended up being one of my favorite recordings of all time. So, well, everybody, thanks so much. I know we're out of time here, but I think I got a lot of really good content, and congrats on this beautiful CD, beautiful project. Thanks so much. Any last final thoughts from anyone you want to talk about before we sign off?
No, I'm just very eager to share it with the world, and thank you so much for helping to draw some light to it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time and scheduling.
It's a pleasure.
Right. We'll see you. We'll see you two in a couple of weeks, right, at the album release.
Yes.
Yay.
Sounds great.
Congratulations.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Bye.
So long.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.